Welcome, everyone. This is the Harris County Flood Control District's virtual community engagement meeting about the Taylor Gully Channel Conveyance Improvements and Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin Project, which we may refer to as the Taylor Gully Project for short. Thank you all for joining us. This meeting is all about keeping you informed and hearing your thoughts about what's being done to reduce the risk of flooding in your area. Your input truly matters to our work, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here. I am Robert Fricky with the Flood Control District Communications team, and I am joined by our leaders and experts to answer your questions and make sure you have the latest information about flood mitigation efforts in your community. It's great to see people engaged in this project, and we look forward to keeping this conversation going. Thank you again for being here. Before we dive in, we have a pre-recorded message from Harris County Precinct 3 Commissioner Tom Ramsey.
Howdy, and thank you for your time tonight. Flooding is one of the problems Harris County has been plagued with far too long. With each storm and rain event, we are faced with the reality that our infrastructure needs, including maintenance, are challenged. And as an engineer, I believe innovation and partnerships are key to solutions we need to ensure flood resiliency. It is so important that we continue to work together with Flood Control District to bring projects to your area for the safety of you and your loved ones. We at Precinct 3 are also doing our part in conducting regular maintenance throughout your area to include desilting ditches, storm debris removal, road reconstruction, right-of-way mowing, and much, much more. I encourage you to visit our website and please submit your service request you may have in your area. There you'll also find Precinct 3 news and activities happening within our parks and community centers. As always, thank you for attending today's meeting, and we look forward to hearing from you about this project. We are here to serve you.
Thank you to Commissioner Ramsey. To kick things off, we'll have a presentation to let you know more about who we are and what we do. Then we'll give an overview of the Taylor Gully Channel Conveyance Improvements and Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin project, including the key details about the project design, timeline, and next steps. After that, we'll move into the Q&A session, where you'll have a chance to ask questions directly to the Flood Control District team. You can also submit comments and questions through this virtual meeting Q&A feature. We'll also cover some of the most common questions we get from the public. If we don't, and don't worry, if we don't get to your question tonight, we'll be sure to follow up with you with a response after the meeting. And I'll also go over these instructions again when we get to the Q&A section. I will now hand things over to Herman Sanders, Project Communications Specialist, who will share information about the Flood Control District and this project. Herman, take it from here.
Thank you, Robert, and big thanks to everyone here with us. I want to start by sharing a bit about the Flood Control District and work that we do. So, what is the Harris County Flood Control District? In 1937, after back-to-back devastating floods hit the Houston area, the Texas legislature created the Harris County Flood Control District to help reduce flood risks throughout the county. Today, we are governed by the Harris County Commissioners Court, and we work closely with other local and federal agencies. One of the key reasons we were originally created by the state of Texas was to serve as a local partner to help bring in federal funding for flood damage reduction projects. And over the past almost 90 years, our scope has expanded. We've invested billions of dollars in flood damage reduction projects throughout Harris County, funded through federal, state, and local resources. In addition to these capital projects, voters approved a property tax rate increase in 2024. These tax dollars added about $100 million annually for maintenance efforts to help keep our flood damage reduction infrastructure working as it was designed and remain effective for generations to come. The Flood Control District is incredibly unique in its mission. In addition to the unincorporated areas of Harris County, we also have 32 municipalities within our boundaries. Our agency can partner with these other cities, precincts, and local agencies to work together on flood risk reduction projects at both the local and regional level. So not only do we plan and implement new projects that expand and improve our drainage network, but we also have maintenance teams working day in and day out to help keep our bayous and channels ready when the next storm hits. In fact, it's built into our mission to plan, implement, and maintain flood risk reduction projects guided by community and natural values. That last part, guided by community and natural values, is so central to who we are. And it's also one of the most difficult challenges we face, building projects that not only reduce the risk of flooding, but also respect the needs of the community and the environment, especially in a highly urbanized area such as Harris County. That's why your input at meetings like this matter so much. I'm sure it's safe to say that everyone joining us tonight probably knows that Harris County is prone to flooding. But why? Not only do we have extreme rainfall events like tropical storms and hurricanes, but our land is flat, which means stormwater often moves slowly, making its way to bayous and channels. While the San Jacinto River watershed has some sandy soils, in most parts of the county are clay soils that don't absorb stormwater quickly. Instead of being absorbed, stormwater just collects on the ground, creating a pooling effect, thereby increasing the risk of flooding. At the Harris County Flood Control District, we know the idea of flooding is a top safety concern for everyone who lives here. It's our job to reduce the risk. We are actively working on flood risk reduction projects across Harris County, as shown on this map, separated by color-coded watersheds. But what is a watershed exactly? First thing you might notice is that each watershed is named based on a nearby bayou or body of water. So each watershed is actually that color-coded area of land around that major bayou or body of water, indicating where stormwater is expected to ultimately drain if rain were to fall in that region. Harris County is comprised of a vast and impressive system of bayous, tributaries, and other important waterways that make up each of the 23 watersheds. If you straightened out all of our winding channels and lined them up from end to end, they would stretch from New York to California, more than 2,500 linear miles. The project we are presenting tonight is an important part of the county's drainage network located in the San Jacinto River watershed. Bayous and channels are just one piece of the drainage network, as you'll see here on the slide that illustrates jurisdictions. And while the Flood Control District plays a critical role in reducing flood risks, we're part of a much larger effort. At your home and in neighborhoods all across the county, storm sewers and roadside ditches collect stormwater runoff and move it away from homes and streets. Those drainage systems are typically managed by either the Harris County Engineering Department, a municipal utility district, or a city, like the city of Houston. The stormwater then makes its way to the larger bayous and channels before it finally heads out to Galveston Bay. We take our role in flood risk reduction for Harris County very seriously, and we leverage different types of funding opportunities for projects that can help reduce the risk of flooding in our region. One very important source of funding comes from the 2018 bond program. Back in August 2018, Harris County voters approved $2.5 billion in bond funds for flood risk reduction projects across the county. This decision didn't happen overnight. Before the election, we held 23 community meetings, one in each watershed, because we wanted to hear directly from the residents about their priorities and concerns. Those conversations helped shape what is now a list of 181 bond IDs, of which more than 20% were added directly from community input. Each bond ID can include multiple projects. The actual timing of each bond project depends on several things like funding, environmental permitting, right-of-way acquisition, utility relocation, and specific grant requirements. It's important to note that even though voters approved $2.5 billion for the 2018 bond program, the estimated total cost of every project on our bond project list is actually much higher than that. From the very beginning, we've been clear. In order to see all bond projects through construction, we would need funding partners. Think of it this way. Multiple bond IDs on the list were funded for a feasibility study or preliminary engineering to see what projects may be possible to reduce the risk of flooding in certain parts of the county. Without this important first step in the project life cycle, it is impossible to know what potential projects are even possible or determine how much it might cost. The good news? So far, as I mentioned, we've secured more than $2.7 billion in partner funding to help move projects forward across Harris County. Each funding partner has its own guidelines. Some have specific requirements for the types of projects that will consider funding, while others may require a local funding contribution. The Flood Control District has an experienced and dedicated team that works very hard to match each project with the right funding opportunities, making sure we maximize every dollar to bring the most benefits to the community. Now I'll share a little more information on the funding partners and cost of this project. First, the estimated total project budget for the Taylor Gully Channel Conveyance Improvement in Compartment 1 of the Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin project under the project charter is about $56.9 million. I want to highlight one funding partner for this project, and it's the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. The Community Development Block Grant Mitigation Program is one of the funding programs under HUD. Mitigation funding focuses on mitigating the risk of future flooding in a community. The Texas General Land Office, or GLO, administers the grant program at the state level for HUD. This means the GLO distributes funds to local, county, and state agencies that apply for and are approved to receive CDBG mitigation funding for projects designed to reduce the risk of flooding in the future. The Flood Control District has been awarded approximately $541 million for projects meeting the requirements. The Taylor Gully Channel Conveyance Improvements and Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin project is receiving $41.94 million in CDBG mitigation funding. All Flood Control District projects receiving CDBG mitigation funds must be completed by March 31st, 2028. I previously mentioned several sources that fund projects by the Flood Control District. Let's take a look at each of the funding sources for this project. First, after voter approval of the 2018 bond, the Flood Control District initiated bond ID F14, that's F as in Frank, -14, for this project. The 2018 bond program allocated $3.7 million for this project for preliminary engineering and design efforts. Design was partially funded by $1.6 million in a community-directed funding secured by Congressman Dan Crenshaw, as well as another $6.75 million for construction from the United States Environmental Protection Agency. And as we mentioned, we also secured $41.94 million in a community development block grant through the mitigation opportunity. Also, $10 million from the Texas Water Development Board through the City of Houston is anticipated. The current total project budget for the first phase under the project charter is about $56.9 million. This includes construction of the Taylor Gully Channel Conveyance Improvements and Compartment 1 of the Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin. This does not include construction of Compartment 2. All non-CDBG funding sources must be applied to this project prior to our ability to utilize CDBG mitigation funds. Now that we've shared some key background information, we'll get into the important details about this project. Before we do, just a quick reminder, we would love to hear from you. As we go through the project details, please feel free to drop any questions or comments into the Q&A box. And with that, I'll hand it over to Melissa Meyer with the Partnership and Programs Division with the Flood Control District to share more information about the Taylor Gully and Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin project. Melissa, over to you.
Thanks, Herman. Tonight, I'll briefly be sharing background details about the project, including where it's located, the recommended design, timeline, and our next steps. This project is located in the San Jacinto River watershed shown on the map in yellow. However, as many of you know, this watershed originates well outside of Harris County. The San Jacinto River, which is one of the watershed's primary streams, flows through much of eastern Harris County and joins with the Houston Ship Channel before flowing into Galveston Bay along the southeastern edge of the county. The magenta pin on the map shows the approximate project location within the watershed. So where are we today with this project? The visual on this slide shows the standard project life cycle of a flood risk reduction project. While every project is unique, they all follow a similar path, and there are certain milestones we can expect to hit along the way. And this project is nearing the end of the design stage. We're aiming to have this life cycle stage completed by October of 2025. There are additional steps required prior to starting construction, but we anticipate breaking ground on this project by the second quarter of 2026. And we'll talk more about the next steps in a few minutes. But first, let's take a closer look at the project area and the recommended design. This map shows a zoomed-in view of the project area, which crosses Harris and Montgomery counties, shown by the brown dashed line. While the project limits extend across the county lines, the entire project is located within the City of Houston limits. Identified from the Kingwood Drainage Analysis Study that was completed in 2020, this project aims to reduce flood risk in the Kingwood area through channel conveyance improvements along Taylor Gully and constructing a new stormwater detention basin. The Taylor Gully channel flows west to east, running through Montgomery County in the northwest and running eastward towards Mills Branch and Caney Creek in northeast Harris County. The project itself consists of about 2 miles of channel conveyance improvements, shown in magenta, starting upstream at the Harris County border and almost to Maple Bend Drive. The stormwater detention basin is located near the Kingwood Park High School on the former Woodridge property in Montgomery County, which is how it got its name as the Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin. The basin will have 2 compartments. On the map, you'll see compartment 1 is outlined in magenta and compartment 2 is filled in gray. So before we get into the specific details of this project, we want to define what we call channel conveyance improvements and explain how they help with flood protection. Simply put, channel conveyance improvements are man-made changes to a waterway that help it move more water, especially during heavy rains. These modifications help reduce flood damage by giving the channel more space to carry water through. And this can be done in a couple of ways: by widening and or deepening the channel, or by clearing out vegetation to reduce friction. Now let's take a moment and talk about stormwater detention basins and how they help with flood mitigation. While channel conveyance improvements help move stormwater more efficiently out of an area, stormwater detention basins hold the stormwater in one place, but only temporarily. We strategically place them in the areas where they can catch extra stormwater and keep it from overwhelming channels and flooding downstream communities. Once water levels in the channel go down, the stormwater that's stored in the detention basins flows through pipes back into the channel and eventually out into Galveston Bay. As mentioned before, the Flood Control District is a no adverse impact agency, and that means we do not allow our projects to reduce flooding risks for one area while increasing the risks somewhere else. And that's why stormwater detention basins are often built before or at the same time as channel conveyance improvements to prevent any unintended impacts downstream. So first we give an area the ability to store excess stormwater, and then we find ways to move it out of the area even faster. All stormwater detention basins serve the same purpose: temporary storage for stormwater, but they can be designed in different ways. Some are built as one large basin, like the examples shown here, while others can be made up of several compartments that may work together. And stormwater detention basins can also be either wet bottom or dry bottom. Wet bottom stormwater detention basins always have a permanent pool of water with extra space above it for storing the stormwater during heavy rain. And dry bottom stormwater detention basins are lined with grass and designed to drain completely between rain events. For this project, we are designing a wet bottom stormwater detention basin consisting of 2 compartments to best fit the needs of this area. So what kind of storage capacity are we talking about with stormwater detention basins? When we measure stormwater storage, we use a unit called an acre foot. And it's the amount of water needed to cover 1 acre of land to the depth of 1 foot. The Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin is estimated to hold about 1,130 acre feet of stormwater once both compartments are complete. And that's roughly 368 million gallons of storage. To put that into perspective, that's enough to cover an entire football field with stormwater to the depth of 856 feet. By temporarily storing this massive amount of water, the basin will help slow the flow of stormwater through the channel and help reduce the risk of flooding. So with this information in mind, let's dig deeper into the recommended project design. This project includes approximately 2 miles of channel conveyance improvements along Taylor Gully. These improvements include installing a concrete low-flow rectangular channel in the center of Taylor Gully, approximately 350 feet downstream of Creek Manor Drive to the existing drop structure 1,500 feet downstream of Mills Branch Drive. Some of you might be wondering what a low-flow rectangular channel actually is, and the diagram on this slide helps provide a visual. A concrete low-flow channel is a narrow paved section built along the bottom of a wider drainage channel. Its purpose is to efficiently carry small, frequent flows like everyday runoff or minor storms without allowing water to spread across the entire channel bottom. And this helps reduce erosion, sediment buildup, and helps with maintenance needs. For this project, the low-flow channel would be approximately 20 feet wide and 4 feet deep. The existing grass-lined slopes will remain intact as much as possible. The flow line of the concrete low-flow channel section will require the existing culverts at Wrestling Elms Drive to be lowered by approximately feet, and therefore the proposed design also recommends replacing these culverts with a 3-span bridge. In addition to the channel conveyance improvements, this project also includes the Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin. This stormwater detention basin is located on approximately 267 acres in Montgomery County near Woodland Hills Drive and North Park Drive. This property is owned by the Flood Control District and the City of Houston. The City of Houston owns about 73 acres and plans to build a new regional wastewater treatment facility, and the Flood Control District will use about 195 acres for mitigation and stormwater detention. The ultimate design of the Woodridge stormwater detention will be comprised of 2 wet bottom compartments. Compartment 1 is outlined in magenta and compartment 2 is filled in gray. The south compartment, which we will call compartment 1, will provide 412 acre feet of storage and will be constructed in coordination with the channel conveyance improvements to provide the necessary mitigation for the increased channel conveyance along Taylor Gully. Compartment 2, or the north compartment, is expected to be completed in phase 2 and will provide an additional 715 acre feet of storage. It's important to note that only the construction of compartment 1 is included in this phase of the project. Another thing to note about this site of this basin, in 2021, the Flood Control District began an excavation and removal project, often referred to as an ENR, on compartment 1. ENR agreements provide an opportunity to make progress on future basin construction by having an excavation company remove soil from the basin site. Approximately 161,000 cubic yards of soil were removed prior to the ENR project stopping in 2023 when this project applied for CDBG funding. And this gives us a head start on constructing the basin and providing the required mitigation for the improvements to Taylor Gully. As we mentioned, the goal of this project is to reduce flood risk in the Kingwood area. And the benefits of the Taylor Gully channel conveyance improvements in Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin Compartment 1 include 412 acre-feet of stormwater storage. Also, based on the Atlas 14 100-year design storm engineering models, the area of inundation is expected to be reduced by approximately 97 acres, 75 structures, and 5 miles of roadway. And water surface elevations along Taylor Gully are expected to be decreased by up to 5 feet. When we say water surface elevations decreased, we mean that a particular storm event will cause Taylor Gully to rise to a specific level today before the project occurs. But after the project is completed, that same specific storm event would produce a water level in Taylor Gully that's lower than before, so that flood risk to homes and people is lower. Overall, the benefit area of the project is estimated to reach more than 24,400 people who either live near or commute through the area. Now that I've provided an update to the current design and the project's benefits, let's take a look at the outlook for the Taylor Gully and Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin project and our next steps. When following our project life cycle, after the design stage comes the construction stage. As part of our standard practice, the Flood Control District will advertise the Taylor Gully Channel Conveyance improvements and Compartment 1 of Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin for bids. And we anticipate this happening in the fourth quarter of 2025. After the bids are received and reviewed, the contract can be awarded after approval from Harris County Commissioners Court. All of this timing is dependent on securing federal environmental clearance. But based on our current timeline, we anticipate construction to start on Taylor Gully and Compartment 1 by the second quarter of 2026. And if everything progresses according to plan, construction for this phase could be completed by November 2027. Construction of Compartment 2 of the Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin is phase 2 and dependent on funding. We currently do not have a timeline for phase 2, but we are investigating options to reserve future funds for Compartment 2. As we get closer to construction, we will be providing more updates to the community. So please make sure you sign up for our mailing list by visiting hcfcd.org/F-14 Taylor and submitting a comment. Again, we appreciate you attending this meeting to listen and learn more about our work. And it's now time to hear any questions or comments that you'd like to ask or share. So I will hand it back over to Robert to kick off the Q&A portion of tonight.
Thanks, Melissa. Now, before we move into the Q&A, I just want to say again, we truly value your input. Your feedback helps shape this project and others across Harris County. Every comment and question we get tonight will be considered as we move forward, and the conversation does not end here. If you'd like to stay updated, ask more questions, or sign up for our mailing list, please visit hcfcd.org/F-14. As a reminder, you can use the Q&A feature through this virtual meeting to submit a question or comment while we're together tonight. I want to point out again that any questions that we don't get to during tonight's Q&A will receive a response after the meeting. Information from this meeting and also a recording of the live stream will be available on our website and YouTube channel. Joining Melissa for our Q&A session tonight are Emily Waddell, Chief External Affairs Officer, Stephanie Zertuche, Project Manager, as well as Long Lin, Chris Trauner and Derek Waddell with the design team. Now it's time to take some of your questions. All right. This first question is for Chris. And Chris, this first question also comes from a gentleman named Chris, Chris Common. He's a Woodstream resident and HOA board member. Chris, thanks for joining us tonight. I also want to note that Mr. Cowan submitted this question to us before our meeting here tonight, and they are essentially two parts to his inquiry. So, Chris, since you're familiar with this inquiry, I'll ask both parts before giving you the floor to respond. The first part, how will improving conveyance capacity of Upper Taylor Gully affect the residents down on Lower Taylor Gully, where the gully makes almost a 180-degree turn and actually runs upstream into White Oak Creek? And now here's the second part, Chris. Chris also states that any increase in capacity and conveyance upstream would have a negative effect on the residents downstream where the gully enters White Oak Creek. He would like to know what plans are being made to improve Lower Taylor Gully conveyance into White Oak Creek and then to Lake Houston at the East Fork, San Jacinto. And also, can you confirm if his statement about the negative impacts of downstream is accurate?
Certainly. Thank you so much, Robert. And thank you, Chris, for your question. So first of all, we want to address the fact that we are first building the Woodridge stormwater detention basin at the most upstream point of the project to capture and hold stormwater so that when channel improvements are built, there are no adverse impacts occurring on our downstream residents, downstream of where these channel improvements are happening. And so one thing that I'd like to add to that is when we did model these improvements in all of our modeled storm events, we are not increasing any peak flows in the channel as they pass our downstream control structure, which is located slightly upstream of Maple Bend Drive where the channel improvements terminate. And at a minimum, those peak flows are being reduced by about 30 cubic feet per second. So I think that was the first part. And then the second part is, let me refresh my memory here.
Yeah, the second part is he also states that any increase in capacity and conveyance upstream would have a negative effect on the residents downstream where the gully enters White Oak Creek. And he'd like to know what plans are being made to improve Lower Taylor Gully conveyance into White Oak Creek and then to Lake Houston at the East Fork, San Jacinto.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the reminder. Okay, so I think the first part of that question I did somewhat address, but I'll reiterate. So at the downstream end, there will be no adverse impacts to the residents downstream of the channel improvements. To address the second part, which is more talking about the section of channel downstream of our improvements, this particular project does not address, it does not improve anything downstream but around White Oak Creek and Caney Creek. That particular area is a very complex natural system and has many hundreds of square miles of floodwaters draining down to that point from upstream. And so while that area is largely controlled by White Oak Creek and Caney Creek, this project does not address those particular issues. However, there was a channel repair project completed in 2021 that was downstream of the current extents of our project.
Thank you, Chris.
Of course.
This next question is for Derek from our design team. Derek, some may not be familiar with the term low flow channel. Can you explain why this particular design is recommended for Taylor Gully and how common is this method used?
Yeah, definitely. And thanks, Robert. So like Melissa mentioned in the presentation, the concrete lined, with the low flow is the concrete lined section and it has vertical walls. So it is common throughout Harris County. The Taylor Gully channel has a certain amount of existing right-of-way available. So it goes through an established neighborhood. So there's not really any any right-of-way that can be acquired through this area. So this is a perfect solution whenever we're trying to get channel improvements where you can't widen a channel just because you have limited right-of-way. So.
All right, thank you, Derek. And we do have another question for you. Derek, we touched on this some in the presentation, but can you please explain why construction of compartment 1 will be occurring in coordination with the channel conveyance improvements?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Melissa had another slide on this one about the stormwater detention basins and what those are mainly designed for. So for this project, the storage volume is needed in order to mitigate the impacts from the channel improvements. So this is why we're constructing compartment 1, and we want to make sure the project doesn't increase water flows or raise any surface elevations downstream of the project area. So stormwater detention basins are usually built before or at the same time as channel projects.
All right, thanks, Derek. Emily, our next question is from Mr. Miniter, another HOA board president in the area. He mentioned that the flood control district recently desilted Taylor Gully from Mills Branch Drive to Mill Branch Way, and he is concerned about the section of Mill Branch Way and West Lake Houston in Mill Branch Village. He says that some of the corrugated metal storm drain outflow conduits have been damaged. Also, he mentions that some of the banks have collapsed into Taylor Gully. He's requesting maintenance on this. And Emily, can you please talk about the best way to address this concern?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Robert, and thanks, David, for flagging that for us. So we don't have our maintenance team on tonight, but I went ahead and as soon as I saw that you sent that in, I flagged it for our head of maintenance internally. And I'll follow up on that. In the meantime, I'll also drop you a note in the chat just with our Citizen Service Center where you can also share some photos if you have them or any background that might be helpful. But I'll make sure to work with our team and have some crews go out and take a look at that.
All right, thanks, Emily. And Mr. Miniter, please know that you can view this presentation on the Taylor Gully Project webpage later this week once we upload it, and then also on our YouTube channel immediately after this meeting. And I also see, Mr. Miniter, that your hand is raised. If you have another question that you would like to submit, please use the Q&A feature to submit your question, and we will get to it as soon as we can. Our next question is for Stephanie. Stephanie, we discussed in the presentation that only the channel conveyance improvements in compartment 1 of the Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin are funded through construction. Can you please share some more details on how much compartment 2 will cost and why it hasn't also been included in the CDBG grant?
Hello, sure. So the estimated cost for construction of compartment 2 is approximately $38 million. Both of the compartments 1 and 2 are currently wrapping up the design. However, construction of compartment 2 was not captured in the grant because the channel improvements was able to be fully mitigated by compartment 1, and the grant did not have the capacity to include compartment 2. You should know, though, that we are investigating future options for project delivery on compartment 2, looking at things such as the excavation and removal program, but it just really depends on funding, and that is something we're still working through at this time.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. This next question is for Melissa, and Melissa, please feel free to tag Emily into this question as you see fit. Greg is curious as to why Wood Spring at the end of North Park in Kingwood flooded last year. This is probably a tough question to fully answer, but can we also talk about the timing of this project coming to construction in the Kingwood area and its funding sources?
Sure. Thank you for that question, Greg. And Robert, you're right. This is a difficult question. I want to make sure I get you the right answers. So I'd love to do a little more research on your question, specifically talking about Wood Spring near North Park. But this project, as you can see on the screen right now, we've got several different funding sources coming into play here. The estimated project budget is just under, $57 million. And we expect construction to start the first quarter of next year. Emily, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think you hit that one on the head. I mean, Greg, I certainly, to Melissa's point, want to make sure that we do some additional research on that specific area and that specific event. So we'll make sure to circle back with you after this meeting with some additional information.
Thanks, guys. Emily, this next question is for you. I know we don't have our maintenance team on tonight as we have the experts here on Taylor Gully, but I want to acknowledge that Michael is asking about when a channel in Kingwood is cleaned out. It seems desilting only occurs 12 to 24 inches wide in the base of the ditch. He's asking why the base is not desilted back to 3 to 4 feet wide to the original design. Can you help us let Michael know his question has been heard and perhaps how we can go about getting an answer for him?
Sure. Thanks so much for that question, Mr. Gengo. We can certainly look into that for you. I will say, I believe that some of the channels that you're talking about are actually not under our jurisdiction. Kingwood's a little bit complicated in that we share jurisdiction with some other entities in the area, including the city of Houston. However, I do know that a lot of our teams are out in the field right now doing some sediment removal work across the Kingwood area. So I can certainly talk to some of the teams that are conducting that work and see how we conducted that and make sure that we get some specific information back to you. But I certainly would want to make sure that we're on the same page about what we're referring to there. So I'll connect with our maintenance team following this.
All right. Thanks, Emily. Our next question is for Stephanie. Stephanie, we have another resident tonight that is curious about the purchase of Woodridge and what the former owner's responsibility is in building a stormwater detention basin. Can you help to explain what the former owner had constructed and where we picked it up?
Sure. So the former owner, what was there before we picked it up was just roadways and some storm sewers, some swells. And then from there, we've taken it and we're designing this detention and we've been maintaining that.
All right. Thanks, Stephanie. Our next question is for Chris. Chris, Mr. Kalman is asking about the water surface elevation calculated at the end of Taylor Gully. The question is kind of vague, but can you talk about that, or do we need to ask Mr. Kalman for more specifics?
Thanks, Robert. I do think that unless we're asking for a specific elevation, I may need a little bit more information. Mr. Kalman, we can do some more research and get back to you on that particular question if you're able to clarify that.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Derek, this next question is for you or possibly Melissa if this is out of your scope, but Mr. Miniter is asking for clarification on the benefits. Is it calculated at 24,000 people or 24,000 residencies? I believe this is a CDBG calculated number, so Emily can be your phone a friend on this one too.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. That is a number, I believe it was calculated by CDBG, so I would defer to Melissa and Emily on this one.
Sure, I can take that one. So it is 2,400 people, or sorry, 24,000 people is how that was calculated. Basically the way that works is it's sort of a benefit area based, and then, we expand it out based on structures, estimated number of individuals living in those structures, that type of thing. So that's kind of how we arrive to those types of things. It also includes people who commute through the area. So that includes some estimations on sort of traffic and that type of thing as well. So there's a few different ways that number is arrived at.
Thanks, Emily. I just want to remind everyone who is still in attendance that please use the Q&A feature through the virtual meeting. You can submit a question or comment while we're together tonight through that way. And also, if we don't get to your questions tonight, then you will receive a response after the meeting. All right. Our next question is for Emily. Emily, Mr. Khan is asking why the excavation and removal project had to stop at the Woodridge site. Can you address that, please?
Sure. Thanks for that question, Mike. So we did have an excavation and removal contract, which you were talking about as the soil removal in the Woodridge site that was underway, and that's basically our way of sort of getting started on excavation while we're working on sort of the ultimate design for the basin. Given our CDBG funding, we had to halt that project because we're not allowed to make any what are called choice limiting actions on the site. So basically, as we're working with GLO and some of our other funding partners on the ultimate design, we have to sort of leave all options on the table. And so we had to stop excavation and removal on the site to allow for those decisions to happen. But in good news, we did complete a pretty significant amount of excavation on the site, which will ultimately make our work on the site a little bit faster and a little bit easier in the long run. So we're excited to get that going again.
Thanks, Emily. And let's stick with you for this next question. Mr. Rehack is servicing the events of Commissioner's Court last week and how it impacts our upcoming and ongoing work. Can you address whether or not this will impact the Taylor Gully project? And can you also talk about any challenges to complete this project under the CDBG guidelines?
Sure. And hey, Bob, good to hear from you. I know we've exchanged some emails today. So yes, the actions from Commissioner's Court last week are certainly something that we're going to be working through as we work toward the deadline of this September to return with a spending plan. However, when we were having these conversations with court offices and really putting funding on the table that was potentially available for reallocation, those dollars never included the local contributions for CDBG or secured partnerships. And so from the flood control district's perspective, those funds are still committed to these efforts. And we're continuing to move CDBG funded projects, including Taylor Gully and Woodridge, forward as quickly and as efficiently as we can. When we're talking about the completion of this project under CDBG deadlines, I won't lie to you, these deadlines are pretty tight, and we're certainly working against them. There's a lot of hurdles on each project that we have to overcome. But based on our conversations with GLO, we're really confident about the schedules associated with this project, and they're working really closely with us to troubleshoot anything that may arise. So, we're not seeing any issues with those deadlines at this time.
All right. Thanks, Emily. Our next question is for Stephanie. Stephanie, this next question is also for Mr. Rehack. He's asking how the new basin will be tied into existing basins. I'm not sure if he means tying compartment 1 to compartment 2, but can you help to answer this? And if not, we may need to ask Mr. Rehack for clarity on this.
Yeah, if we can, just because there are several compartments within that area, some that we won't be working on, and they're not really highlighted on this screen, but if just a little bit of clarity on, is he talking about connecting the two compartments or the one surrounding? That would be helpful.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Stephanie. And Mr. Rehack, please submit that clarification into the Q&A below, please. And so I see we have several more questions that came tonight about the former ownership of the Woodridge site and cost of compartment 2 and timing, but we hopefully have captured your answers in a few of the previous responses. If you asked one of those questions and we didn't fully answer it, feel free to add more specific questions in the Q&A box below. All right, our next question is also for Stephanie. Stephanie, and this is a common question we receive from the community. Our county's waterways are definitely multi-purpose. Moving stormwater out of Harris County during heavy rain events is our agency's primary focus. But on sunny days or nice evenings, residents can frequently be seen walking, running, or biking along the channels and stormwater detention basins. Do you know at this time if there are going to be any hike and bike trails constructed as part of this project? I know we have some folks here tonight who will be very interested that recreational amenities are on our minds with this project.
Yeah, thank you. So we know the residents in this area are very active, as you mentioned, and we do support the multi-use of our basins and channels for recreation. But just to reiterate, the mission of the flood control district is to implement and maintain flood risk reduction projects guided by the community and their natural values. We don't typically construct or maintain the recreational amenities, the trails and things like that, but we do welcome the partnerships with the other entities who wish to do that. So long as those activities are not interfering with the property, the detention basin or the channel improvements primary goal of reducing the flood risk. We have had interest expressed from the community for recreational amenities within this site, and those conversations are still being had to ensure that we can get something there that does not impact the flood risk reduction.
All right, thanks, Stephanie. We've had some excellent questions coming tonight. As we keep refreshing the Q&A, looking for more questions as they come in, we'll continue to ask a few more that I have in the queue. If not, we will be wrapping up out of respect for everyone's time tonight. So if you do have a Q&A, please submit it now in the box down below. Our next question is for Stephanie. Stephanie, another question. Sorry about that. It was mentioned in the presentation that the City of Houston owns part of the property where the Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin will be constructed, and that they have any plans to build a regional wastewater treatment facility on the property. Do you have an update on the estimated timing of this being built?
So the Woodridge site, yes, it sits on about 267 acres, and the City of Houston owns 73 of those acres, while the flood control uses nearly 195 for the basin. So the city does have plans to use a portion of that property to improve their wastewater services. However, the exact timing of that, I'm not sure. We have coordinated with them, and it seems to be not anywhere in the near future, but for the latest updates, you can go to the City of Houston websites or reach out to them directly.
All right, thanks, Stephanie. Our next question is for Melissa. Melissa, will any of the funds coming from the City of Houston be used for recreational amenities around the Woodridge Stormwater Detention Basin, or is it only for the Taylor Gully channel conveyance improvements?
Yeah, so the City of Houston's contribution is only for the channel conveyance improvements along Taylor Gully. And on that note, I would like to say that we sincerely appreciate our funding partners, especially when we have overlapping jurisdictions like for this project. So in addition to CDBG, the City of Houston and the Texas Water Development Board's Flood Infrastructure Fund, they offer important partnership opportunities to help complete these type of larger projects. So thank you to our funding partners.
All right, thanks, Melissa. Our next question is for Derek. Derek, Mr. Rehack says that it is 5 existing basins that he was talking about tying into. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So for the northern basin, we have, I believe, 3 box culverts that'll connect there's several basins around the compartment 2. And so those will connect the proposed compartment 2 basin with the existing, and then compartment 1, there'll be large box culverts that'll connect that. So they'll all be connected to store water from the channel improvements.
All right, thanks, Derek. Our next question is for Chris. Chris, can you talk about the area of inundation expected changes as a result of this project? Mr. Bowman is curious about flood insurance and just wants to get an idea.
Sure thing. So I will first state that flood insurance and flood insurance rates are set by are determined by the maps generated by FEMA. So our project will work to reduce those inundation boundaries, but we're not the ones responsible for the rates. So to address the question of where the inundation boundary is being reduced, the extents are largely reduced in the upstream end of Taylor Gully in the Elm Grove Village and in Mills Branch Village neighborhoods. And so that's where a large majority of the inundation acreage is being reduced at.
All right, thanks, Chris. Derek, this next question is for you. Miss Burnett is asking about comparing the May and September 2019 storms. If those events happen again, will this project help, and in what way?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Robert. I'll hand this one over to Chris to help give some feedback on the question here.
Sure. Okay, so those two storm events mentioned, I believe the September one was most likely Tropical Storm Imelda. The modeling that we went through on this project did not specifically include those storm events explicitly. In our development of our normal frequency events, the likelihood of events like this happening is indirectly included in that. So hopefully when we are modeling these frequency events, the metrics that you can see, on the screen are an indication of the improved performance of the area that you should expect.
All right, thank you, Chris. Our next question is for Melissa. Melissa, we are often asked how a wet bottom detention basin full of water can hold more water. Can you please explain this?
Sure. So the most important thing to note is that a wet bottom stormwater detention basin is not full when you're looking at it prior to a rain event. So during a rain event, the additional storage that it provides is accumulated above the permanent pool that's there normally all the time. A dry bottom stormwater detention basin, on the other hand, we have to design that to dry between rain events. So basically we have to work with gravity, and just because of the slopes and the geometry of a dry bottom basin, you tend to lose storage compared to a wet bottom basin.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, so we are not seeing any new questions, and we're getting pretty close to 7:30. So I'd like to go ahead and share a few final reminders. First of all, thank you again for joining us and being a part of this important conversation. If you think of questions or comments later, or if you're watching this on replay and have something that you want to add, you can submit a comment on the Harris County Flood Control District website at hcfcd.org/F-14. And as always, we also encourage everyone to get flood insurance. People usually think about flood insurance around hurricane season, which runs June to November, but flood season is year-round in Harris County, and we urge you to protect your home and property. We will continuously share updates on this project as our work moves forward. So be sure to sign up for our email alerts on our website and follow us on our social media channels to stay up to date on what we're doing in your neighborhood and beyond. I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. Stay safe and have a good evening.